So many thanks, Pete, for inviting me to speak on behalf of the Dark Sky Working Group. Um, I thought I'd start with just explaining who the working group are and how this guidance came about. It was a bit of an accident, to be honest. I contacted Jill Bullen at NRW simply to ask for permission to use some maps in some supplementary planning guidance that the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority were starting to write on light pollution. And it turned out I wasn't the only person to have contacted Jill. And that's how the group came about. And we had discussions and decided that it was kind of slightly pointless for every planning authority in Wales to be writing very similar guidance when we were all trying to achieve the same thing, which were darker night skies. And so the working group was born, and we started writing the guidance with permission from Welsh Government. And as Pete said, that was launched on the 20th of February this year in Cardiff. It's the first national guidance, and I'm absolutely delighted to say that on Friday it also became award-winning guidance when the working group were awarded the Landscape Institute Excellence in Planning for Landscape and Assessment, and also winning the Landscape Institute President's Award. Where it was described as being groundbreaking guidance. So we're all very, very proud to be part of that working group. It's also a true partnership in terms of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, with collaboration across multiple authorities, NRW, Welsh Government. So yeah, really, really collaborative piece of work. So not that I'm trying to teach anybody anything they don't know, but it's good to start off with what a dark sky actually is. It's where stars are visible to the naked eye. There's very little light pollution to disturb that night sky. It's usually in a national park or a designated landscape, and it's where true natural darkness survives. Might seem obvious, but it's much, much more than that. It's more than just being able to see the stars. And I was asked by somebody in the authority, I won't name names, but I was asked why I keep banging on about stars and dark skies. But it's so much more than just stars. As Peter's already said, it affects our health and well-being. Artificial light at night disturbs our circadian rhythms. It stops us going into a deep sleep. Lack of sleep has knock-on effects on our mental health and our physical health. So dark skies improve our health and well-being. It improves the environment and carbon by reducing carbon emissions from poor or unnecessary lighting. It promotes biodiversity by protecting habitats and ecosystem and dark foraging networks. It also promotes heritage and culture by providing a link to our ancestors. The night sky that we see today is the same one that our ancestors saw thousands and thousands of years ago. Dark skies promote an opportunity for tourism and economy, astro-tourism, and communities able to become dark sky communities and improve their tourism offer. It's an education opportunity and a way to engage people and get the conversation going about how dark skies can improve all of our lives and wildlife. And it promotes access to some of our darkest areas in Wales that people might not know about or have had an opportunity to visit. So I won't go into too much technical detail here, mainly because I don't necessarily understand it, but there are different ways of measuring dark skies, from simple sky quality meters, which can measure the dark skies in a local area. But the map that you can see on the screen now has been produced by NRW and LUC, and you can see these on the dark skies story map. And I'm sure Jill or Pete will be able to provide you with the link to that, should anybody want it, but it's very easy to find if you just Google it. And basically, this is satellite imaging, and these have gathered information on the amount of light emitted and then been mapped into these 8 colour bands, which you can see on the screen. So the dark blue shows very low brightness levels, so less light pollution, and the dark red showing the highest brightness values. And if I just go on to the next slide, we can see Wales in a bit more detail. You can see not a massive surprise that it's our urban areas which have the highest levels of light pollution. And you can see our protected areas, the designated landscapes, the national parks are much, much darker. But even within those designated landscapes, there is still light pollution. And you can see quite clearly in my own national park, the areas around sort of Tenby, Haverfordwest are really quite bright. So what can we actually do about it? If you have a quick look at this next slide here, the Bortle scale shows the different gradings of the dark sky, with a 1 being an excellent dark sky site. So these would be the internationally designated sites, through to 8 or 9, which are what you would probably expect to see in a large city. So for many of the urban areas identified in the previous slide, what people will be experiencing are things in the 6, 7, 8, 9 category. You might see the odd star in a bright suburban sky to virtually nothing at all in an inner city sky. So how do we tackle this? As a planning officer, obviously, I'd be remiss not to mention how important planning is. Planners and planning is at the forefront of delivery. LDPs and supporting supplementary planning guidances are the mechanism for setting planning policy for addressing light pollution. Lots of our LDPs across the country currently have pollution policies, but light pollution is often lumped in with noise, odour, water pollution, traffic pollution, rather than standalone policies. So the dark skies guidance is advocating for actual light pollution policies to tackle both internal and external light pollution. It also considers then that planning will allow lighting to be considered right from the word go, from the very earliest moment. Large schemes then can submit lighting assessments, which will look at baseline conditions and give planners the details about the type of lighting, the task illuminance, what it's like already, and ultimately, does that lighting really need to go in? Can that development progress without lighting? Planning officers can also apply conditions if they're minded to approve planning applications and give permission, and then those conditions can actually be enforced. So there's then a mechanism, if a condition is applied, that someone then can go out and check that that lighting, agreed lighting, has been installed as permitted, and if not, then enforcement action can be taken. So this is very, very relevant in the built environment. It's very easy to think in an urban setting that one more building, one more set of lights isn't going to make any difference to the current light levels, but they really, really do. And we've also seen in some places knock-on effects where one building or a new building with dark sky friendly lighting has encouraged other businesses and premises around them to look at their lighting and to reduce their lighting. So it really can make a massive difference when we get this lighting right. So the next couple of slides, I've just got some photos. As they say, a picture tells 1,000 words, and it's a lot easier to do this through pictures. These are taken from the good practice guidance on planning for the conservation and enhancement of dark skies in Wales. So you can see these in the documents. So I thought I'd focus on things which are more likely to be an issue in urban areas. So looking at the industrial and commercial lighting. I apologise, I don't have any pictures from my patch. Being a national park, most of our areas are quite rural, and even our urban areas are not big urban areas. So I wanted some port photographs, but unfortunately I could only give you before photographs of Milford Haven, but that is something we are working on. So if you have a look at these two photographs here, you can see in the top photo, that's the before photograph, and the below photograph, where you can clearly see that dark sky is far more visible. You can see the silhouettes of the trees and the darker sky above that, and the stars pinpointed in the sky there. And really, really simple retrofitting here. lowering the column height of the lighting. That will immediately bring the lighting level down. If you look on the bottom one, you can see a sort of triangular light on the building to the right-hand side. That's a fully shielded light. So the light is directed downwards to where it's needed. It's not shining unnecessarily up into the sky. The lighting is a lot warmer. So we brought it down from around sort of 4,000 kelvins to around 2,700 kelvins of light. Lights are on timers and sensors, so they will, it's not relying on somebody remembering to switch the lights off when they go to bed or when it's not needed anymore. So that will happen automatically. Or they're on movement sensors where someone walks past and would actually trigger that light to come on. You can see it's resulted in a much better lit pathway. So where people actually need to walk, you don't need the buildings to be lit up as much because once you've got there, you're going inside them. So the pathway is lit up much more clearly. And most importantly here, I think demonstrating that just changing those lights very, very slightly has reduced the sky glow. You can see that dark sky. Another issue in lots of urban areas, lots of buildings of historical interest being lit up. These buildings were not designed to be lit up. They do not need to be lit. And yet, if you walk into most major cities, the big churches, cathedrals, etc., have very, very excessive lighting. So you can see in these two photographs here, actually by reducing the lighting, that historical building is actually lit very sensitively and is a lot more obvious as a historic building in the environment rather than that excessive lighting that you can see on the left-hand side. This is a local example. I just added this in yesterday. I got a report through from some retrofitting that we had done on some schools in St David's. So the top line, you can see those original fittings, very standard fittings that you would find on public buildings and on schools. They're very large. There's no direction as to where that lighting is going. They were on all night, so they'd be switched on by the caretaker at night, switched off by the caretaker in the morning. And if you have a look at the bottom row, then you can see that the lights are fully shielded so that no light is shining out above the light. It's all directed downwards. They are much more focused on what they're lighting, so the doorways and the lighting in the car park, again, doesn't really need to be lit at night. The school isn't really being used at night, so we don't need to light the car park and the access road very, very clearly. And these aerial photographs then show you the massive difference. So if you note in particular, in the before photograph, this school is in a residential area. It's right next to the road which accesses the city of St David's. The bright lights from the school were making navigation difficult for drivers coming into the city. But look at that house in the top right-hand corner. It's totally illuminated by lights from the school. There is no external lighting on that house. And just by replacing the luminaires with a warmer colour temperature light, and by reducing the lighting from 4,000 Kelvin from fluorescent lights to the 2,700 Kelvin dark sky friendly lights, that house is now in darkness. Those residents don't have lights shining into their bedroom windows at night and those need for blackout blinds that Pete mentioned at the beginning. We've also got some figures for this particular retrofitting. The previous energy use for the school was around 2,046 kilowatts. The new energy use is only 960 kilowatts, so that's saving 1,079 kilowatts and 652 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per year. That's a 53% saving just by changing a few light fittings. It's estimated that the money saving is around 50% of the energy saving. So this school is saving approximately 26% on their energy bill each year just by changing a few lightings. The guidance has a number of visual aids in it just to help visualize the change and to be able to articulate that change to anyone who's feeling a little bit unsure about why this is something to do. So you can see here these diagrams, pictures which were commissioned for the guidance, show very, very simple changes that can be made. In an urban setting, it may simply be encouraging people to shut their curtains, to shut their blinds, to pull the Velux blind across to stop unnecessary lighting from houses coming out to the night sky. But yet again, simple changes like some of the street lighting be on lower column heights, they could be on timers, the warmer bulbs, appropriate lighting on sports fields, which are on timers, that can be on lower lighting levels, practice sessions, and brighter lights for matches. Very, very simple changes. The guidance also has the good lighting principles, and this is something for everybody to follow, whether it's an urban environment or a rural environment. Don't light unless it's necessary. Light only where things need to be lit. Lighting should be no brighter than necessary. Use warm colour temperatures. Use switch off dimming or PIR sensors. Lower mounting heights. Limiting internal lighting spillage outside the target area and keeping light away from wildlife. And that can be boiled down very, very simply to the strapline that is all the way through our guidance, which is the right light in the right place at the right time. Many thanks. Happy to take any questions.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that, Gail. That's really clear and precise. Um, so yeah, please post your questions in the chat to Gail. Um, and while you're doing that, I've got one for you. Yeah, we're used to seeing things like I don't know, Milford Haven, the port, lit really, really brightly with these huge lights on towers and things. And I think on the first slide you showed, it said that lighting, having these really bright lights doesn't make work areas get any safer. How can that be true?
So we are working, we've made contacts with the Port Authority. We've also got a number of refineries and energy plants around Milford Haven. And yeah, that is one of the discussions that we
Mhm.
have is that they will throw well, it's health and safety, we need to have these lights. So we do have to get across the fact that actually very, very bright lights aren't necessarily that safe because it creates these dark pockets. And we all know it's like when you go from a very bright area to a very dark area or a very dark area to a very bright area, it takes your eyes a while to adjust, your pupils adjust, and that can take time. So actually adjusting from very light to very, very dark can actually be more dangerous. There's also been research done in terms of crime that actually very brightly lit areas creates these dark pockets where people can't be seen. Not necessarily an issue in an industrial setting, but certainly in an urban setting that better lighting can create safer public realm areas. So these discussions are going to take time. These are long-standing practices in industrial areas where bright lights are seen to be the safest thing to be done. Um, but again, I think actually I'm going to steal an analogy that you've used before, Pete, which is we need to sell it to people, not necessarily in health and safety, but in terms of the energy and cost savings. And I know you've used the towels in the hotel bathroom analogy where you send it out as a message that if you want it changing, pop them in the bath. But if you don't, you're helping to save our environment. It's not that it's saving the hotel money. And that, I think, probably with industry in particular, is the way in. You're going to save money, you're going to reduce your carbon emissions, and then hopefully it only takes one industry to do this and be the groundbreaker, and we'll get there. I'm not sure if that answers your question, if I've just waffled at you, Pete, but
No, you put that brilliantly. So thank you so much. Actually, Jill has put a link in the chat to something from Danny Robertson, another member of the Dark Skies group, talking about creating a dark sky luminaire. So so a luminaire is basically a light fitting, um, and that doesn't cast light up into the sky. I'm just wondering if Jill, do you have any more information on that from Danny? I know she's at another meeting this morning.
I don't. Sorry, I don't think my camera's going to connect there. Allow this time. It might come in now. I don't know if it does.
There we go.
Hello, everybody. So I don't have any more from that, but Danny shared that this morning.
Mhm.
So we'll follow that up a little bit more. But I think the important thing here is, and I've encountered this myself, is you go to replace your lights and you can walk into a commercial lighting place and you can ask the question, which I did, um, show me the dark sky friendly lighting, assuming that they will know what you're talking about, and not necessarily so. So it takes your own efforts to work out what's appropriate. Well, that was my mindset to do that. And so that was quite easy. For many people, I think when they're given the choice of, oh, here's a new lighting unit, perhaps, oh, and it's also going to be favourable to dark skies, many people would choose that the same as we do with other aspects of our food choices and food miles. So I think we need to make it as easy as possible for somebody that might be minded to think, oh, I'm going to change my light fitting. Here, what shall I use? But also it's about getting engaged with commercial lighting people to help take that message. And wouldn't it be nice that in time that becomes more of a norm? It is just something that we would expect. So I don't have anything just yet. I know it's something Danny, as a dark sky officer in Aruri, has been working on, and hopefully we will be able to share something as the dark skies working group, being careful to also not preclude some businesses and products, but by doing it, by encouraging those that are choosing to design and manufacture ones that are more favourable.
So maybe we could see a sticker on dark sky friendly lighting,
Great.
like the bat signal from the Marvel comic universe. Maybe we
Yeah.
should see if
Or
we can get
plants.
them to
Plants in the
sponsor us.
Yeah, I mean plants in the garden centre where they say they're bee
Mhm.
friendly. Really simple message. It's not taking anything away. It's just a little extra, isn't it?
Yeah, and yeah, obviously bats are not the only creatures to be affected by light, and maybe that's another question. Um, Now, Rose has got a question in the chat. So, Rose, I wonder if you could turn on your camera and microphone to ask Gayle your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can
Yeah.
now, thank you.
I'm having some technical difficulties. Apologize. Um, I wondered if you so a lot of the buildings you mentioned are kind of one single stakeholder or single point of decision making. So particularly the school you mentioned and Milford Haven Port. I wondered if you'd had any experience working with, I'm thinking of like a street or a town where people have different priorities and thinking about the whole lightscape. Be really interested to hear any reflections on that, or if you haven't maybe done that, any kind of ideas you have, that would be really interesting to hear about, because I can imagine that might be more challenging in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely more challenging. One of the good things about starting in St David's, so there were actually three school campuses in and around St David's. And we've actually had some inquiries from people saying, "Oh, I've noticed the school's changed their lighting. I'd like to change the lighting on my house. What can you advise?" Which is brilliant. So starting from we're in a fortunate position, I suppose, in Pembrokeshire, in that most of our communities are actually quite small. So it doesn't take very long for someone to notice that something has changed. And I noticed that, so just scrolling up, Catherine had mentioned, Pembrokeshire County Council have replaced some horrible street lights. And that's a big improvement as well. We have, I didn't mention this in the presentation, but the guidance itself is a material planning consideration because it's been issued by Welsh Government as good practice guidance. It can also be adopted in its entirety as supplementary planning guidance by any authority. And we have done that here in Pembrokeshire. It's under consultation, public consultation at the moment. But we also hold engagement events with town and community councils, and they are a very, very good way to get in to then spread that message to individual householders or a particular street where things are not that great. And the other thing that we're doing now is that any new planning application that comes in, whether it's a single dwelling, whether it's an estate, these are all having lighting conditions put on them. And this is new. It's going to be to control not just external lighting, which is what a lot of policies do, but also internal lighting. So looking at different types of glazing, which is reduces the glare. It might be things like setting, if they have large areas of glazing, that there's an overhang of the building, so that protects it as well. We're also, I'm assuming I'm able to mention this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So if I'm not allowed to do this, we shortly there will be a sort of summary document, which is more of a sort of, we're not allowed to call it easy read, but it is designed that it can be used by town and community councils and hopefully to get into schools as well, to get that message about how important dark skies are and how we improve lighting. So I hope that answers your question, Rose. It is going to be a challenge, there's no doubt about it. But these single stakeholder places are a really good place to start because they're setting the example for others to follow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
Brilliant. So we've got 10 minutes until Zoom ends the first part of our webinar, and we've got 2 questions at the moment. We've got one from Katie in the chat, and then just after Katie posted that, Gethin put his virtual hand up. So I'll ask Katie to unmute herself and ask her question, and then we'll go over to Gethin.
Hi, I was just writing a presentation on communication, and it suddenly struck me that people might find the dark as a scary concept. Have you ever come across that? And did you think about starry skies rather than dark skies when you were, or is it sort of a long established name?
Yeah, I think it is a long established name. And honestly, no, personally, certainly in this authority, we haven't come across anyone saying, oh no, dark skies is terrifying. I think it's a term that's been around long enough for people to understand that when we talk about dark skies, we are generally talking about being able to see the skies free of light pollution. So personally, I've not come across any negativity in those terms. Probably the only sort of negative thing is what we've already discussed, is that idea that people think that light automatically means safe. But you can see with the aid of the photographs, and they're so important through this guidance, you can see that changing the lighting actually makes things more visible. It doesn't create those extremes of very, very light, very, very dark, which people's eyes can't adjust to. So, yeah, as I said before, picture says 1,000 words, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought your pictures were brilliant. Thank you very much for the talk.
Thank you.
And Gethin, I wonder if I could come back to you now and ask you to unmute yourself to ask your question.
Hi there. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, great. I'm not sure which camera I'm on, so easy if I'm not looking at you. Yeah, so my question's relating to actually with conservation areas, and you mentioned the planning policy that's integrated with some of the dark skies, and apologies, I missed the first start of the talk, so you may have covered it. But from my experience, so I lived in a conservation area in Edinburgh where they had these fantastic, beautiful lighting areas. It was Stockbridge, so it is distinct from other areas. And I was wondering whether there's any relationship between dark skies and how that could be inputted going forward in Wales, if there is a conservation area sort of guidance particular or something to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, as a policy planning officer, my sort of experience with conservation areas is mostly to do with our supplementary planning guidance. But I know that there is, CADU, their advice on conservation areas. I don't know if that stretches to lighting, but it's certainly something that could be explored. I don't know if Jill has anything she'd like to jump in on here.
No, I don't. Unfortunately, I can't add anything of any substance. But that's the beauty of having these sort of events, of giving us ideas of things that we could communicate and explore a little bit better. So Gethin, good question.
Yeah.
And I'm sure rather than trying to make things up, I'm going to take that away. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Lovely.
So, Gayle, in the few minutes we've got left before we finish the first part of our webinar, the guidance won the awards from the Landscape Institute, and Siobhan from the Welsh Government is going to present those to the Minister shortly. How do you think we could use those awards and the fact that they're going straight to the Minister to maybe affect more change within government and local government in Wales?
Well, as sort of shallow as it might sound, I think a nice sparkly trophy does actually it does prove, first of all, that the Landscape Institute is very, very well respected. And the fact they've recognised this as being groundbreaking guidance, I can't imagine that's going to do the guidance any harm whatsoever in terms of its seriousness and what it's aiming to achieve. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's going to get the guidance out there wider. What I hope it does, I believe that the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority is the first planning authority to adopt it in its entirety as supplementary planning guidance. To be perfectly honest, it saved me a huge amount of work. So I would like to see all authorities in Wales adopting it and using it, because if we're all using the same guidance, this award-winning guidance, then we could achieve a huge amount across the country to improving our dark skies. And I hope that I'm sure that the Minister is going to be delighted to receive those trophies, because the guidance was endorsed by the Minister and by Welsh Government. So yeah, fingers crossed it gets that message out further and wider. We'll certainly be putting out a press release here in our authority. And I'd like to take this opportunity as well. I know there's a few people on the working group who are on this presentation, just to say what a delight it was to work with you all, to work with such a group of professionals. And I think we should be rightly proud of what we've produced. And just hope everybody on the call then will sing its praises loud and wide, and get everyone to know what this is all about.
Yeah, now I did mention in my introduction that Wales is the first nation to produce this kind of guidance. I mean, I think New Zealand had done something. How does what we've done in Wales differ from, what's happened in other countries?
Goodness. I mean, the fact that we've got the endorsement from the Minister, I think it shows that it is seen at the very highest levels as being a very important piece of guidance that can affect real change. And we're also a pretty small country, so actually we should be able to show change quite quickly. So we've got all our data that we collect on biodiversity, and the green infrastructure networks, and I can remember all the terminology in the guidance about the ecological networks and how those match up with the dark skies. Then we should be able to collect data quite quickly, I would hope, to show that changing very simple changes in lighting is having huge improvements for wildlife and for people, and for our urban settings and our rural settings. Again, I tend to answer questions very loquaciously, so I might not have answered everything there. But yeah, I am very, very hopeful that we can make a big change for Wales with this guidance.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping that we can use this almost as a lever to get guidance like this on a bunch of different topics.
Yeah.
So everybody watch this space. And in the meantime, I think one of the simplest things that we can do to save the environment, and it also saves us money, and that's just turn off outside lighting at night when you don't need it.
As simple as that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.